So you said there were loopholes in Hong Kong's electoral system. What did you mean? And can you give us an example?
One example is this 35 plus plot that they actually did. There was a major plot of so-called 35 plus, which meant they were going to run for election, occupy more than half of the legislature, and then basically rule out all government proposed budgets so as to paralyze the whole government. If you look at our current system, there's nothing that can stop them from doing it. If you look at some smaller examples, we have this thing called internal committee of the Legislative Council, which is like the largest committee of the legislature. The beginning of the last legislative year actually took them more than 6 months to elect a chairman of the committee because of various filibustering. So can you imagine that the Legislative Council has the most important committee, the internal committee, didn't have a chairman for 6 months, and all they did was just sit in the committee and try to elect one. That really stops a lot of things from being done, including some major public works, including some other investment. All these things cannot be done because this committee was not functioning.
This Patriots governing Hong Kong principle, how can it make Hong Kong safer and more stable, as officials say it will?
I mean, it's not just this change. It also involves the national security law, which was enacted last July. On one side, we can stop people who has been funded by foreign powers or influenced by foreign powers who are doing basically local terrorist activities like the violent riots we saw in 2019. So on one side, I think that makes Hong Kong safer and more stable. So we don't have to worry when we go out on a Sunday into a mall, there's going to be patrol bombs thrown in. On the other hand, the reform of the electoral system will ensure that only patriots can enter into our legislatures and also some other governing bodies. They may still have different views on policies with the government, but at least they are patriots and they would not have ill intentions and motive to stop the government from doing good things.
What would you say to those people who have concerns over the proposals to improve the electoral system?
The reality is Hong Kong is a city. Okay, it's not an independent state. It's part of China. The fact that we have one country, two systems, Hong Kong people running Hong Kong, was actually based on a delegation from the central government. By that delegation, there was an assumption back in the 1980s, I think 1984 to be exact. Mr. Deng Xiaoping already said that he was confident that Hong Kong people running Hong Kong would be successful, provided that these Hong Kong people running Hong Kong, a majority are patriots. Okay, so that was the assumption when we were granted this special administration, which is very special if you think about it. We, as a city, we have more power than London or New York. We have our own currency. We have our own judiciary system. So there's a lot of autonomy that has been granted to this special administration region on the ground that it's going to be run by patriots. On the ground, that we will not have people running Hong Kong who will actually become a risk to the country, right? That is just normal, I would say, political ethics.